Welcome to Clearbrook Studio. Charles Edward Anderson Berry, Chuck Berry, was born on October 18, 1926 in St. Louis. He died not far from where he was born on March 18, 2017 at the age of 90. As a young man, he took some country, Bob Wills mainly, some black rhythm and blues, some white rockabilly, and some pure culture Chuck Berry, and turned out 30 or more songs that catapulted the seeds of rock and roll into a major genre of American and worldwide music. Raised by two parents in a rare African-American exclusive middle-class neighborhood in St. Louis, he was on track for a most unusual career for a black man in the 1940s in country music while still in high school. But wait a minute. There was no way this could possibly succeed. This was doomed to failure, and it did fail. He never made it in country blues or country swing. Think about it. Ferocious-looking Chuck Berry in country music in the 1940s? It was not going to happen, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen at all, really, until 20 years later in the mid-1960s, and when it did, it was not Chuck Berry. It was a warm-hearted, affable, your grandmother loves him, Charlie Pride. But back to the 1940s, perhaps in part because of his frustration at his stalled musical career, Chuck Berry ripped off a series of armed robberies, and he was locked up from 1944 to 1947. His father, a carpenter, builder, and sometimes preacher, and his mother, a college graduate high school principal, were none too pleased. When released, he soon married and supposedly settled down. He had 4 children, bing, 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 and he had many different jobs while still playing with a series of bands and groups, every kind of music imaginable. But a lot of it was country swing, Bob Wills style music. A lot of it was country blues. As a matter of fact, years later, he often said, when I was coming up in the business, I always wanted to be a country blues singer, but I wasn't blue enough, because in our family, when I was growing up, there was always food on the table. So, dead-end career in the late 40s and early 50s, and then in July of 1955, he took an old Bob Wills tune called Ida Red, which you can still see right here on YouTube, the original Bob Wills version. Where did that come from? Channeling Bob Wills. Ida Red. Type in Bob Wills Ida Red, I-D-A-R-E-D, and you'll see the song that Chuck Berry started out with. But he changed the woman's name, and he changed the beat, and he changed the lyrics. He changed everything about the song. And what he came up with was this. Maybelline, why can't you be true? Oh, Maybelline, why can't you be true? You done started back doing the things you used to do. Yeah. Maybelline kicked rock and roll into high gear that summer of 55. I remember it well. It was the summer between my high school graduation and my freshman year in college, and it seemed like they played Maybelline all day, every day. Chuck Berry was a complex person. On the one hand, he was a licensed beautician and hairdresser. On the other hand, he was also the scariest man in music, in part, no doubt, because he always carried a loaded gun, but also in part because of his brooding, simmering, and frequently violent, aggressive behavior. It was written somewhere that the other scary guys in music around that same time, the 1950s and 60s, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, didn't like to work with Chuck Berry because they thought he was too dangerous. That says a lot. Now, he was locked up several more times over the years for various offenses, including the Mann Act. Question: why do you suppose that Frank Lloyd Wright and Charles Manson, I don't think they were together at the time, but why do you suppose that Frank Lloyd Wright and Charles Manson had their Mann Act charges dropped while Chuck Berry and Jack Johnson were prosecuted for theirs? But here's what I find most amazing about Chuck Berry. With a two-parent middle-class upbringing, married to the same woman for 68 years, 4 children throughout his 30s and 40s, his songs captured the essence of rebellious 1950s and 60s adolescent guys better than anyone else's songs. Take, for example, kind of the guts of adolescent rebellion back in those days: disrespect for adults, disrespect for all authority, hail, hail, disrespect. Or as Marlon Brando said in the movie The Wild Ones, when the barmaid said, "Exactly what are you rebelling against?" he answered, "What do you got?" Salesman talking to me tried to run me up. Rick says, "You can buy it. Go and try it. You can pay me next week." Too much monkey business. Too much monkey business. Too much monkey business for me to be involved in. Blonde-haired, good-looking, trying to get me hooked, wants me to marry, settle down, get a home, write a book. Too much monkey business. Too much monkey business. Too much monkey business for me to be involved in. Or take this from the same year, 1956, adolescent successful seduction fantasies and anti-judicial fantasies. Arrested on charges of unemployment, he was sitting in the witness stand. Judge's wife called up the district attorney, said to free that brown-eyed man. "You want your job, you better free that brown-eyed man." Now, wait a minute here. He might have had the judge's wife in the palm of his hand. I understand he was pretty good at that kind of stuff, but I fought the law and I won? No way. That's not what's going to happen, Chuck. Every time he fought the law, he got locked up. So obviously this song is pure fantasy. Arrested on charges of unemployment, he was sitting in the witness stand. Judge's wife called up the district attorney, said to free that brown-eyed man. "You want your job, you better free that brown-eyed man." Yeah.